You recognize the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having this hearing today, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. U.S. President's clemency power obviously comes from Article 2. It states that the President shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. You look at clemency just broadly, it is there to correct maybe errors of law, errors of fact, changing circumstances. It is a check on government, and it is, certainly used by the executive, used seldomly maybe, or more liberally in some administrations. But the point of it is to really get back to a fair society. People were given clemency after they passed away or while they're alive for crimes that they may have committed. In December of 2020, we've been talking about Mr. Forbes' prison sentence, where President Trump commuted it and left intact, obviously, the restitution and the forfeiture orders. But once President Biden takes office, the DOJ announces that they're going to seek to re-prosecute those hung jury charges. I'm really concerned about why we're here today. I mean, you look at this and where presidents have that authority, it is deeply concerning to me that we would, with a change of an administration, now come in and re-prosecute an entire fact pattern where you had a hung jury. They had maybe opportunities to do that and didn't do it. People are very concerned at home about a Justice Department, a law enforcement agency continuing to push things, and it's you versus the government in a lot of ways. Mr. Forbes has already spent 4.5 years in prison. He had a restitution order still intact of $5.5 million and a forfeiture order of $38.7 million. But the DOJ feels compelled to re-bring up these charges. I find it difficult to see how this is not two-tiered justice system. Mr. Tolman, I want to turn to you. Do you believe there's any potential political or personal motivations driving the decision to re-prosecute Mr. Forbes? And if so, why do you think that is?
I do. I think there are, because on the record, the prosecutors told the judge that they would not charge those hung jury accounts if the conviction was upheld. It was upheld. The word of the DOJ now, when I was a prosecutor, if I made a representation, even if my boss didn't like it, he was going to back me up on what I represented. Here, they have gone back on their word. They're willing to go forward. And to Ranking Member Nadler's point about, could they have fashioned a pardon on the acquitted or the hung jury counts? Yeah, they could have, but if you are not outraged by DOJ doing this now, the next DOJ, they won't worry. They'll go and re-prosecute on the uncharged counts. You're down a slippery slope, granting or accepting or not getting outraged at DOJ doing this, because you don't know what power they're capable of if you don't stop them now.
In your opinion, just looking at this holistically, one of the things that I think that has benefited this country for a very long time is our faith in the institutions, our faith in the rule of law. Does this eradicate or erode American citizens' faith in the rule of law, in our system, in our justice system, in your opinion?
It absolutely does. I worked on a pro bono case for a woman named Adrienne Miller, and she was nobody, had no money, and was granted clemency by President Trump. And they need to have that opportunity and know that that's a possibility. In the current system, it's not. And then you're going to add on top of that DOJ will ignore a presidential grant of clemency to go after him. It's offensive to our law and order system and to our Constitution.
Mr. Tolman, in June this year, you tweeted that if the DOJ treated Hunter Biden like the thousands of no-names who get prosecuted, he would be looking at decades in federal prison. Yes, I said decades. I know I have 35 seconds left, but do you care to comment on that and kind of what you meant by that and maybe your thought processes in delivering that tweet to the marketplace of ideas?
There are so many mandatory minimums and such ease to ratchet up a sentence based on, for example, when you're sentenced for fraud, it's the dollar amount. If it's drugs, it's quantity amount. All of those get you to 20, 30, 40 years in the federal system. And you know, poor inner city defendants that have been prosecuted for the same conduct,
The gentleman's time has expired, but you can continue to finish your answer.
poor defendants that were prosecuted for the same conduct, they were laughed at if they ever asked DOJ for a diversion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes